This is the day I got out of jail last year. I was assaulted the day I got out. Sure, you can read that. It says discharge diagnosis, head injury. So, yeah, obviously, I tried to turn it in. And I had to go to the hospital about this as a disabled person, and they should have contacted the police and told them what happened. When I try to go to the police, I'm talked over and dismissed and sent around in circles. It doesn't matter how much evidence I have. These cops aren't going to do their jobs because I tried to turn them in 2022 for not doing their jobs. I'm a homeless person taking physical assault after physical assault. Now, Shelly, at CARE, every time that I was assaulted since getting out of jail this time, every single time I went into CARE to try to turn it in there, to tell the people there what was going on. And every single time they wanted to talk over me, tell me stories about themselves, about their exes, about whoever else, and then tell me they're going to set up an appointment with Shelly. Well, what's Shelly doing? This is what Shelly's doing. Not sure if you can read that. It says, Sean, if you asked for your CARE file, it wasn't me you asked. Well, she's wrong about that. It also says, as far as the photo that you were referring to that was absolutely shredded some time ago, I want to help you get an apartment. Now, first of all, it wasn't just that photo. She told me that there was a picture with some mean stuff on it and that it was on the wall. Everybody in CARE walked past that. She said eventually they put it in a drawer. Now, this was posted on their wall in their office, the very place I'm supposed to go as a disabled person to turn in abuse, and that's the kind of stuff that they're doing when I go in to try to get help. That's not okay. It's not just the evidence of that picture. There's also a lot of evidence in my file. She told me several months ago that she destroyed all of the mean stuff, and I had to wait and bide my time to get her to admit that she destroyed, well, anything at all. Because once they start looking through my file, they'll realize that there's a lot of holes missing. There's a lot of parts of my file, just like at TFCC. There's a lot of stuff that's missing, a lot of stuff that they're intentionally taking out or refusing to look at, including, well, my 3 evaluations that show that I am not schizophrenic or delusional. Now, how do they differ? Well, it says, I want to help you get an apartment and get you connected to the right kind of support systems that meet your specific needs. The support systems that meet my specific needs is a mandatory reporter who will do their job. That's pretty simple. I need somebody to advocate for me. That means they need to know what the fuck is going on. And Shelly doesn't shut up. Her opinions are more important than my evidence. The police's opinions are more important than my evidence. And of course, covering up their own wrongdoing by dragging this out as long as possible. What does that do? Well, after a year, the police get to destroy any and all body camera evidence. I was abused a lot in jail and before jail. Not sure if you noticed this part here that says head injury. And by the time that this was all going on, of course, I've had to go to CARE for 24 recorded attacks or assaults against myself and my vehicle, at least. But they want me to fill out housing paperwork, which they keep losing. And then, of course, when I get somebody who's actually listening to me, at least to some degree, and comes to understand it a little bit, someone like Russell, well, then they take all of the men out of the office, and they're all only working at night at the night shelter. So anything that me and Russell were working on, I have to try to start over with, but Shelly isn't having any of it. She won't look at anything. She won't listen. She just talks over me like I'm an idiot. And pretends like I haven't filled out the paperwork for housing or done literally everything that they've told me to do for housing. I've done everything. And then they continue to, over and over and over in my sessions, treat me and pretend like I wasn't filling out the housing paperwork and jumping through their hoops to get housing. But the fact is, I went to them because I needed a room to sit down in and put together my evidence so that I could turn it in. I needed their help to do that. That's why I was sent there by the police. They're supposed to be mandatory reporters. Well, they didn't have a room. They do have rooms. They definitely have rooms. But in 2022, oh no, they couldn't let me use it for that. Same thing with TFCC. All these places, instead of helping me the way that I was sent there to get help, if they'd have helped me in that way, we could have stopped this a long time ago, but it's the same thing everywhere. These mandatory reporters want to make money. They want to get their paycheck. They don't want to turn in crimes that were committed by their coworkers, despite the fact that the mandatory reporting laws require them to. So what do? They defer. And then, of course, connected to the right kind of support systems that meet your specific needs. Well, there's literally no specifics in that statement. None. The right kind of support system, yeah, I don't have a friend or family member, so there's mandatory reporters are supposed to replace that exact support system. Mandatory reporters, which she and her coworkers happen to be. See, I'm taking abuse and being sent to the same places that abused me to get help as if that's going to work. Like, for example, when I was sent to Sheriff Scott DaCosta to turn in Sheriff Scott DaCosta, he arrested me and assaulted me. And then run around and, well, he'd already been running around telling everybody in town that I was schizophrenic because I was trying to turn him in. Now, y'all get to hear that story over and over again. There's also the paperwork that shows that I'm not schizophrenic. I am not delusional. Now, of course, in all this time, have we gotten me a support system? No, we get sent around in circles. This is like almost 4 years now. We're getting ready to start a new year, aren't we? When I first started going to these people, it was when? September 13th of 2022. And all they wanted to do is push the housing thing, anything to ignore the abuse. It's not that I wasn't trying to turn it in. It's that as a disabled person who's homeless, the police don't want to do their jobs and they will defer us to these people who will defer us some more. They run us around in circles. They ignore the abuse. Say it's not their job. That's right. I can only do what is within the scope of my job. Oh, you mean like a mandatory reporter, which you refuse to do? No. She pretended to do that job for a few moments before and just after the officer showed up. The very next time I saw her, she let me know that all of that was bullshit. That none of the things that she said to me about helping me were true. And that none of the things that she said in front of that officer about helping me are true. See here, she's supposed to be helping me as my peer support worker. She doesn't show up most of the time. When I go in to turn in an assault that literally just happened, what do I have to deal with? I have to deal with the staff there changing the subject or telling me they'll set up another appointment with Miss Shelley, who's either not going to show up or she's not going to shut up. Neither of those are conducive to hearing or helping a victim of violent crimes. How violent, might you ask? Well, that word right there is head injury. Yeah, head injury. Now, who else harassed me on that day? Mr. Focius, screaming at me from his front porch as I was walking from the hospital over to where my car used to be. Wasn't long after that, somebody hit me in the head with something. Not like walked up and hit me, they threw it at me. Well, it's a joke. It's all a big joke. Doesn't matter how much evidence I have of this abuse, I have to be afraid to go to the mandatory reporters because they've shown they're not going to do their jobs. They're going to defer, they're going to deflect, and then they're going to play victim when I try to turn them in because they're not doing their jobs.